Today's guest has lived at the edge of pressure and purpose. At 17 years old, Chris Schmitt enlisted in the U.S. Army. After being turned down by West Point on his first attempt, he fought his way back in, graduating from the academy and launching a 30-year career in Special Forces with the Green Berets. 3 decades, he led missions across Afghanistan, Europe, Northwest Africa, and beyond, operating in some of the most uncertain, high-stakes environments in the world. But Chris's arena didn't end with the military. He saw that same lessons forged under fire were the very ones missing in corporate boardrooms. So he founded Azimuth Consulting Group, guiding Fortune 100 executives, international nonprofits through leadership challenges with the mindset of special forces. He also created the Traverse, which is a wilderness leadership expedition where the mountains and rivers strip away titles and reveal the truth of how people lead. Chris believes the best leaders aren't defined by toughness alone, but by empathy and the humility and thirst for learning. Today, his mission is to inspire high performers to thrive in complexity, uncertainty, and change. Chris shows us that the real leadership isn't about rank, it's about impact. Chris, welcome to Legends of the Arena. And most importantly, thank you for your service. Even though you're a Green Bay Packer fan, I still applaud your service and thank you deeply for that.
Thanks, John. And thanks, Justin.
Yeah, Chris, welcome. We're excited to have you. And once again, thanks for your service. And John just sore because his Bears are 0-2 and your Packers, they just said the Packers are the best team in the NFL. So congrats.
Thanks.
We'll cut that out. Leo, let's go and we'll just make a couple edits there. But Chris, let's jump in really quick. This is such a key part of your story, right? You enlisted at 17. You got turned down by West Point, but you still fought your way in, right? So most people would have quit right there, right? Like, just take us back to the moment. What was going on there and what pushed you to see that dream through?
I just had a chance this past weekend to go back to Wisconsin, and our Howards Grove High School football team was recognized for the 7th straight Central Lakeshore Conference win that we won 40 years ago. And I had a chance to chat with the team. I had a chance to chat with coaches. And so I had a chance to really kind of immerse myself in those moments. And when I had that chance to talk to the team, one of the things I said to them is that pride in community, that pride in your school, that pride in our football program became something that I was looking for at a bigger scale in the rest of my life. And while I was looking at schools and where I wanted to go, and there wasn't really necessarily a drive to go to college. I didn't grow up in a place that lots of people went to college. Most of my high school class did not. What I wanted out of college wasn't a party school. What I wanted out of college was a place that had purpose and pride. I think that I really bought into what Coach Renzelman and Coach Milbrath were coaching there in Howards Grove, that I wanted to find that thing again in the future. And I saw that in West Point. I read an article about Doug Black, a guy who had his junior year had rushed for over 1,000 yards, but his freshman year, when he tried out for the team, he got cut. He played intramurals, he lifted, he did everything he could, got onto the team in the spring. Because some guys got hurt, he ended up finding himself in a position where he got to play some. it became a Kodak All-American. He talked about the academy. He talked about pride. He talked about, MacArthur's statue and Eisenhower's statue in between, Washington's statue, and all that stuff resonated with a 17-year-old. So when the academy said, hey, we don't think you're going to be academically successful, I didn't want to close that door because I didn't really have something else that I had found that could do that. And some of that is just not having a great perspective or a lot of exposure to other things. But fortunately, I was really focused on doing that and working hard, being a kid who baled hay and did hard physical things. Working hard wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a problem. So joining the Army with an intent of going to the prep school and getting to the academy was the path that I laid out for myself. And I kept it simple and I focused. I incremented the story now is that I took the SATs 12 times. I'm not sure if it was actually 12 because I'm really bad with numbers, but the bottom line is I took the SATs a bunch. I incremented and I got accepted. And
That's
because
amazing.
I got accepted as a freshman at the academy, my peers are going, oh my God, I don't know what's going on with what's happened to me right now because they're getting yelled at, and there's stress, and there's all kinds of things that are happening in that freshman plebe experience that as someone that's been in the Army for 2 years, I'm looking at the statues of Eisenhower and Washington and going, I can't believe I'm here. This is so great. And I think, that's an origin story, but I think that idea I've carried with me, whether it was going through Ranger School, whether it was, going through selection after being an infantry officer, whether it was after 9/11 doing some of the things that we need to do, that believing that you can do more than you think you can, especially if you do it together as a team. And it doesn't all need to be done in one bite. It can be incremented upon. And I'll come back to that idea because I think that all of that is a core part of not only who I am, but what I coach, because it's what made us successful in hot, dry, dusty places and some of those really most difficult places on the planet.
I love that.
Chris, this is fascinating. Last week was a really tough week for America for lots of reasons, and I think America's trying to figure out what do we do with these school shootings and the Charlie Kirk assassination, et cetera. But one thing seems clear to me: our young people need role models, and they need good role models that can lead them through and paint a picture for them that is different than where they're getting inspiration today, or maybe getting inspiration today, such as social media and a very divisive cable news frenzy that, you have to be very extreme to capture eyeballs. So
right.
When you really think about your experience going through the special forces, and tell us a little bit about that, and then maybe just provide that from the context of giving some counsel and advice to young people.
Right on. Well, I think all the physical part is, that it's unquestionably important. But what's even more important is character and integrity. Integrity as it kind of equates into the whole character equation. And I think that whether it was baling hay in Howard's Grove, whether it was, putting one step in front of each other in Ranger School, whether it was doing hard stuff in selection or as an operator later on, the key is that work hard, over deliver, and be in a space where no matter what, never do something that questions your integrity. The saying, the ends justifies the means. Well, I'm going to put a little color to this. That's bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. We have to be, and I think collectively, let's just say the three of us, we have to be people of character, and we have to be in a space where we ask the question when someone disagrees with us or we disagree with someone else. We have to ask the question, okay, what am I missing? Because greater perspective is always important. We can't immediately go, wow, I just heard that. I don't like it. I'm triggered. I'm going to go on a spin. And now the ends justifies the means. It doesn't matter about, I was wrong. So that now justifies an action that isn't right either. And whether that's just the three of us, that's a real micro look, or as a nation, things can't happen and we go, oh, we've been wronged. We need to strike back instead of, and I'm not saying being weak because I have all this stuff around me. But I'm saying that we as a nation and we as men of character need to be a bright, shining light. And I feel like we've compromised that on both the right or left. I live in Seattle. I get to see a way different perspective than John, you see in Florida. No question about it. Somewhere in the middle is the right answer. And by saying, hey, what am I missing? Or maybe just by asking the question, inspiring a little bit more thought that we can come together, because the answer is not putting a bullet in somebody else.
No, that's exactly right. And I think, the discourse, the discourse is got to be around topic by topic and not platform to platform. And what I mean by that, you can't group all these issues that thou are, okay, if you're going to represent the left, this is what you believe, or if you're going to represent more of a right leaning, I think it ought to just be issue by issue. How do you feel
100%.
about it? What makes sense to you with your
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
We got to get there. And, we've got, I look at the news cycle, and the more extreme you are, the more eyeballs you get.
The more it sells, because more people will look at it left to right. The problem
that model is terrible. My grandfather,
24-hour news cycle.
Yeah.
My grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, and he would be watching one of the programs, and I would call him and check in. He was in his 90s, and he thought the world was coming to an end.
Right.
And then we needed to, no, I need to get all my money out of the banks, and I need to put it under my mattress because the world is coming to an end. When he's like, come on, this is the greatest country in the world. We got to be better than this.
Absolutely. Well, I think too, it's to your point about the labels. I mean, if you think back 20 years too, the labels don't even apply. Like so many of the principles, the ideas that conservatives may be identified with now were actually somewhat more liberal democratic things of a party 30 years ago, right? It's like these labels are constantly shifting, but if people just identify with the ideas, right? Like there's so much more diversity, and that the country's more in the middle. There's no real label for this middle part that a lot of people fall in. And yeah, it's a very critical, weird time the country's in.
And as a result, don't let your issue then justify something else that's just not right.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Because as a result, and I hear it on both sides of the aisle, hey, we're going to overlook this malfeasance, this bad behavior, because overall my side of the story is happening, and that's happening on both sides of the aisle. And that's why, are you guys familiar with Stan McChrystal? So Stan McChrystal, I don't get a plug. I don't get any, but On Character is a book I read a couple weeks ago, and I've sent it to a whole bunch of my clients. Not because there's anything absolutely brilliant in the book, except for the big idea. And the big idea is we need to have a national conversation about character. We need to have a national conversation and say, you know what? It's not okay that Fox or CNN is telling us a lie and we're okay with it. Could you imagine going back into the 70s and Walter Cronkite saying something to the television that he knew was false? That's just not the way it worked. I don't know. I haven't fact checked it, but I think that there never was a time that he was reporting on something that he thought was just drama or fluff or a blatant lie because it would get them ratings.
Yep.
And
or try to make the news, right?
Or just make news.
They reported the facts. And yes, you had the editorial page in the newspaper that would.
But that was just an editorial. It's interesting. You don't get one person reporting more. You get a team of people, and they're all saying, "I think," instead of saying, "This is what happened," and as a result, this is what happened, and this is going to be the consequence. Period. Not no slippery slopes, no red herrings, just simply and. I feel that in that space, there then can be, if there are red herrings and slippery slopes, then you get into a real negative spot. And what I would love is we could get into a much more positive spot because, as you said, Justin, we're still an incredibly amazing place as a nation. And we are the best country on the planet. I've been to most of them. We're the best country on the planet. And we need to, as those citizens of the best country of the planet, we need to determine where does our news, where do our politicians, where do our practices, where's our left and right boundaries? Where are the, hey, this isn't acceptable to us as a value of what Americans value or cherish.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's right, and I think we need something. It goes in cycles, so I think you're going to hopefully.
Well, the pendulum swings back and forth.
Hopefully, we see a swing to let's have media that reports the facts and provides the news.
And there are some entrepreneurial efforts out there. There's a woman named Jane Ferguson who worked for. She interviewed me. It's on my LinkedIn page. An interview she did with me it was in Senegal, and it was on CNN. And then she moved from CNN to Al Jazeera and reported at Al Jazeera, and then moved to PBS. Talk about the spectrum of both left and right media size between CNN, Al Jazeera, and CNN. And now she's saying, those sources they're not only not taking care of reporters in the field, because reporters in the field are less important to what gets played on the media.
Yeah.
But it's also a disservice to us because we really don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Completely agree. I didn't tell you this yet, but my sister-in-law, this just gets at the core of I think the big issue, which is, we've lost the ability. A lot of people, I think, have lost this connection to each other where you can have differing opinions. We all have our own stories that shade, our own triggers, our own things we bring. And so we may like certain ideas that other people don't. And that's okay, because there's something very deeply personal. But I've literally seen this now like a few times very recently. And one was literally this week, where my sister-in-law, one of her best friends from childhood, 4 years old. I mean, they've been side by side. And all she put is she liked an R.I.P. Charlie post. I think it was very, very minor. And they're completely just disbanded.
That's so sad.
Total, can't even fathom that. And I had that happen with a friend of mine last year, very similar. And it's just sort of this idea of we can't get that human thing back where we're connected and we can all have different ideas.
When did we go from talking about issues and news and, hey, what do you think about this, to, hey, my job is to go after your opinion and convert you and get you to come to my side on, it's become this.
Are you
It's
familiar
not
with Adam
become,
Grant, Justin?
I am. I am.
So Adam has an idea in his book, Think Again, that says, in the moment that someone else disagrees with me, or I disagree with you, and I think I said it earlier, I need to ask the question, what am I missing? I need to find common ground. And I love that for both sides of the aisle, but I also love that for corporate America, because I have people that I coach right now that they're not talking to one another because one said something, the other said something else, and and this is all work related stuff. And we need to do this. No, we don't need to do this. We need to do it differently. And instead of saying, all right, I need to take a breath. I need to get out of my amygdala. I need to bring it all forward, because I do all my thinking in my prefrontal cortex, not way back here where I'm ready to fight. I can't be preaching. I can't be proselytizing. I need to find a spot in which I'm gaining information. Adam Grant, I'm thinking like a scientist, and I'm bringing you more information. And John, I pulled this up because I texted this to one of my clients this morning. Surround yourself with people who are thoughtful in ways you are not, because they see what you can't.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that too.
If only we can do that and not feel like, wow, I just didn't even think that, or I don't think that. And that's so wrong, because it's different for me. And there's a thought process there. If we were threatened, let's say 100,000 years ago, I have a different perspective of how old the world is, but as humans, we were 100,000 years ago, we were threatened. At that moment, we would immediately respond to it. First thought is that's the other side. I might say, if we were just talking about people, I might say to Justin, well, that's dumb. In fact, you're stupid. So we start with criticism. We kind of move to contempt. We move to a place of blame. Those guys caused me to be, caused us to starve. You know what? I'm just not dealing with them anymore. And once we get into that space, well, then they're the bad guys. I'm the good guys, or whatever. But the whole idea of that's different. I don't like it. I'm going to criticize it. I move to contempt. I go to blame. I just want nothing to do with you.
What's the inverse of that Adam preaches, right? What if you could be conscious enough in that same moment,
in the moment
to catch yourself,
when you see it different, you see it as something that is good, or at least what they're doing when they're their best. In this case, rest in peace, Charlie. Like, it's not a political statement. It's hey, he's got family, all of this. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle on. You can't look at violence like this as something that was good. You see empathy, and you say, you know what? She is really good at empathy. And now we're not going to criticism. We're going to, when she's her best self, she's empathetic. And that's a very different story than, oh my goodness, we're all going to be in a really bad place and I can't even talk to her anymore. No, it's interesting.
To me, this is a very productive conversation. And how many outlets, how many channels is this type of conversation having versus I'm going to polarize on an issue and thou art wrong, I am right, look at these idiots, etc. When you go out and look at the social channels, it isn't this kind of conversation for most of it. Mm-hmm. It is taking hard positions and attracting eyeballs. And we got to figure out a better way to communicate.
Especially if we're living true. I mean, I pulled off your tagline: two best friends, optimists, life learners, family men, believers, connoisseurs of life. ... Or I'm gonna add patriots too. ... Yeah, where we need to be is in a positive place in how we are our best versus how we're angry and we're going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I think that's
revenge is an ugly place to live in.
No,
yeah, that's a key thing, I think, for all of us is to whether it's an ad of grantism or it's just a basic good thing, like try to find the best in people.
Yeah. In the common ground, going back to why you went to West Point, right? Like you wanted to have that, you were craving that tribe and that bigger purpose. And that's the great thing about the American, dream we all get to live here, right?
It's the American experience.
At the American experience, at its foundational level, before you get into anything ideological, there's the principles are so uniting, right? We lost that in the last, I don't know how many decades. I mean, but like it is such a great thing. And how do we get everybody reunited on that? We're all brothers and sisters and under that. And then we can have differing ideas. And that's why the country's so great in the first place. That's why it existed. We're supposed to have differing ideas.
Friday night, I'm in Howard's Grove after the high school football game, and I'm drinking a beer with my coach, which I think is the greatest thing ever, because I really thought that he is definitely an influencer and the man that I am. And as the conversation is going around the bar, there's lots of but there was good banter. There was good conversation. So I don't know, maybe the solution is we all just relax and have a beer. It's a very Sheboygan County, Wisconsin way of looking at life, I guess. But I think if we can just relax for a moment and hit that first bit, let's try to find a way to be optimistic and live in a world of optimism. Because if the opposite of that is, well, I'm pulling all my money out of my bank account because it's all going to hell and we're all going to die. And so I need to do whatever I can. To do what I can for the greater good, because we all know that, especially being both businessmen, we know that when we all cooperate and we put money into the market and we start businesses and we do things, we all prosper.
Yep.
The moment that we start talking about I and we start going inward, that's when it starts going bad.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we pull in my military experience, I've been in Sarajevo and I've been in the villages around Sarajevo and saw all of the houses burned in all these little hamlets. And it all happened because one side couldn't deal with the other side. They went to that, I'm not talking to you anymore. They were intermarried. The language, Serbo-Croat and Croatian and Bosnian, are just different names for the same language, really the same people. They were all Yugoslavians under Tito, and then it all kind of broke apart because politicians, because they were chasing power and wealth, splintered them all. And as people, as optimists, as people doing our best and being our best, we have to start, I think, doing what we can to open the conversation and then having a conversation of where our right and left limits are on character, and what we're good about, what we're good with.
I think that's right. Well, tell us about, let's take us through the process that you went through as a fan of the military. My father was in the first CAF, served in HIT, saw heavy combat. Both grandfathers were in World War II, came home, got celebrated, et cetera. So that's a big part of our family. I would love, and I know how much my dad revered, and he was in the first CAF. He revered your group, Rangers, Green Beret, Delta. He just thought you know,
Yeah.
to go through what you all had to go through was truly incredible. The way you operated as a team, and you relied on each other, that loyalty and trust. He really imprinted that in my head of how important that is. We'd love to hear how you did that.
I think that even as a private, I remember going for runs and they would, the Jody cadence all being sung. That little phrase, see that man in the green beret, teaching how he earns his pay, that resonated more than what other things resonated. And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Like maybe there's even within the context of military and force, there's a way to influence and get to ends. And I think that by my junior year in high school, I was really excited, or junior year in college at West Point, I was at a point where I was really excited about being an infantry officer and going back to the infantry where I was as a private. And very cool. I got to be in the same regiment as an officer that I was as an enlisted guy, which gave me tons of credibility because I'd done the Manchu 25 and 100 miler. I'd done all kinds of things and I didn't divulge them, but that information kind of sneaks out and the troops find out. And in the middle of a 25-mile road march, the guys are like, "Sir, you can be all right. Like, this is really hard." And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I'll be okay." And what I didn't tell them is I'd done 6 of these things already. And, the bottom line is somewhere towards the 80% done of the road march, we stopped for a break for water, and I went into my backpack and I pulled out 2 buckets of KFC chicken and started handing out chicken to the guys. And the guys are like, "Holy cow, sir, where'd you get those?" And are like, "Did you carry those?" Like, carrying anything more is just unimaginable because you just do what you absolutely have to do and never anymore. And that you actually, on this first time where we're watching you to see if you survive, suddenly you pulled out chicken. And that doesn't necessarily get us to the story where you're wanting to go to, Justin, but I think it kind of does, because I solidified my position just by doing something that was kind. I know that as a private at that moment, things kind of suck, and they probably suck because I didn't eat well that day. I'm probably, my nutrition isn't great. As an athlete, I was on the cycling team at West Point, and I'm a huge anomaly. I tried playing football at the prep school, wanted to play at West Point, but I realized I wasn't going to be big enough or strong enough or fast enough. And I had done this at the prep school. I did and the prep school is this place where they take regular Army guys, and athletes. The academy wants to go to West Point, but their grades weren't quite good enough. And you have a year of math and English. And we started with 360. We graduate with about 120.
Where was the prep school? Was it junior college?
In Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, but now it's up at West Point. It's up above the stadium at West Point. The bottom line is, through all that experience, I learned that the guy that I thought I was from high school, I really was maybe something different. And that was, I went and I thought triathlons were kind of cool. As a private, I tried doing a triathlon. In the middle of the swim, I realized I didn't know how to swim because I didn't really grow up in that place where swimming lessons were part of my kid experience. And so I did a bike run wearing my Army sweats, my Army football sweats. Everyone else is wearing tri-suits and stuff. It's like 1987, 1988-ish. And won it because I'm really strong, or at least comparatively. And I realized that I really am good at being a soldier. And I have something that's valuable that can take me further. And so within that process and that thought process of maybe life isn't as brutish and cruel as my Howards Grove, Wisconsin upbringing has taught me. Maybe there's ways to make things better. And so being a Green Beret
Discovered
is
a
something
part of
that I
yourself
wanted to
too.
do. Yeah.
That's a very Hobbesian. That's a very Hobbesian statement versus Lockean.
There you go. And so after a couple years in the infantry, and some work with Ranger Regiment, with 275 that, I got to support, which really was developmental in my thought process. I went out for selection. I thought it was super fun, where others thought it was the worst thing happening to them in their lives. And I'd go and do my event and go back to my Tom Clancy book that I was reading, and then I'd go to my next event. Selection itself.
Can you take a step back? So explain to the crowd what is selection.
So as an officer, you have to be a senior first lieutenant, junior captain. So about 5 years of time. And the same thing is true for enlisted guys, is around 5 years of time. You go to this crucible, and it's about 3-ish week. There's a week of individual stuff. There's a week of team stuff. There's psychological tests, and there's, you get done with something really hard and they make you write a poem. Like, there's just a whole bunch of both physical, mental. They're evaluating. It's a selection. It's hey, these are the guys that are going to go through a 2-year course. So, it is a selection, but there's still another selection, and that's when you go through the qualification course, because a whole bunch of guys got weeded out in the qualification course as well. Our class, started with like 40 officers and graduated 3 of those original 40.
Wow.
And then you go to your team.
And this is in the Green Berets.
In the Green Berets, yep.
Okay.
So selection is to become a Green Beret. Selection allows you to go to qualification, which has a number of phases of tactical and your job training. So as an officer, how to be a good team leader, how to understand a lot of the geostrategic significance stuff, how to be proficient in a language. Fortunately, my Nachname is Schmitt, and I could speak some German beforehand. Had 2 years at West Point as well, which were the easy classes that I didn't have to work really hard because I was failing physics and calculus because, as we talked about before, I'm really bad at math. So German became kind of the add-on, and was super valuable during my service. There's a number of occasions where the guy that I was working with, Kosovo is an example, where the commander of the UÇK, or the Kosovo Liberation Army, had fled with his family to Switzerland and spoke good German, or good enough German, and with my German was good enough, and we could not have to have an Albanian interpreter. We could speak German and have common ground and be able to solve big problems.
And Chris, can you tell the audience? I think everybody nowadays, especially because the movies, hears more about SEALs than any of the other special forces.
Right. Always.
But what was the mission set like that was unique, that that Green Berets were doing, that was unique and they were designed for comparatively?
Well, if you've seen the movie 12, that Green Beret team in Afghanistan, really kind of the vintage SF mission, attaching with somebody else, and Dostum is what those guys, who they connected with. And they worked with them with U.S. resources to get to the solution. The key about being a Green Beret is that you have those warfighter skills that the SEALs have, but they've honed them maybe better than we have. The bottom line is they're a bit more of a break glass in case of war and do really hard things. That's why they had the Bin Laden raid, because it wasn't. But if we had done Bin Laden with the Pakistani military, and enabled them and gave them the credit, well, then you might have had Green Berets doing it, because that's kind of a little bit more of that nuance. The thing that I loved about being a Green Beret was that choice number one, or course of action number one, wasn't necessarily shooting somebody in the face. Course of action number one was, what's the end state? And are there other ways that we can get there without a brutal use of force? And not all the time is there, as was maybe said once or twice of my courses of action that I used, once in a while the leaf eating course of action won't work. But in most cases, being a little bit smarter, being a little bit more creative, bringing in different perspectives, allowing for a conversation, things could happen. Things could get accomplished without a brutal use of force. And if that happens, that might be the best for everyone. And in hindsight now, we're just celebrated 24 years after, or celebrated, I don't know if that's the right word, remembered 24 years after 9/11 happened. If the course of action is always to shoot somebody in the face, the shooter, even though he might have physically survived, that shooter brings home stuff that's in his brain that those little boxes have to stay shut.
Mm-hmm.
If you can choose solutions that don't always choose that use of force, there's less of those little boxes that you need to keep tight.
Are the military services, are they getting better at working with individuals to compartmentalize, to lock down experiences, and then come back and support them? Because I read a lot about mental health, and we have far too high of a suicide rate for our
and still
veterans. And we got to figure this out. These are our heroes. These are people that are making this life that we live here possible. So what were they doing, and what are they doing now?
Honestly, there was some small conversations, but the truth is we're getting at it. There's work to be done. And I think that there's a number of great not-for-profit organizations that help. I volunteered and was a chapter captain for Team Red, White, and Blue, and just wearing the T-shirt and doing physically hard things really was great in my transition. And the Station Foundation is another. There's Wounded Warrior does great things. Like, I think there's a lot of those kind of organizations that have picked up the mantle of how to do it. And I think that's what makes America great, that we're not having to, this is going to kind of hit my political lean a little bit again, but I personally don't think the federal government solves all problems. I think that we as Americans have a responsibility to ourselves and each other. So should the Army, should the Navy be doing lots of stuff? I think there's a thoughtfulness that should include, do we really need to do that? Mm-hmm. But if we do, then we do, and we need to do it the best we can, and with as much force, with as much surprise, which is enough mass, which all of those principles of war, just drive them home into that moment in order to be successful and bring everybody home. Mm-hmm. And then on transition, I regularly talk to, let's just say it's five transitioning guys a month that I just was connected by a friend with a foundation that she works as a kind of an executive coach to help guys transition, with a guy that's struggling a little bit, that's local-ish. And so I'll connect with him. I'll probably go on a hike with him or something more. Just to hear his story, help him understand that he's not by himself, and help him get to a place where he realizes that, hey, he needs to develop a community around him. because if you're there by yourself, and you guys know that whether it's the stress from combat or the stress from running a company or the stress from doing anything else well, you need to have some good friends that you can talk to work things out. And what we often find, especially in those stories, especially friends of mine that have committed suicide, they didn't reach out in that last moment. They got themselves in a place where they were so by themselves they couldn't even pick up a phone and press one button, because it's quite that simple now.
I mean, that's really what Chris Kyle was doing, from the movie and the SEAL. He was doing exactly what you were doing, is helping someone come back and transition, and
that's our responsibility. That's our responsibility. That's,
well, we need more Chris Schmitts in this.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of us out
there. Yeah, well, you're an impressive guy, and I can, you speak from the heart, and I think you want to do good and want to see this country be great, as we do too. So, anyways,
I love what I got to do. I love what I got to do, and I love in the executive coaching space now. I love what I'm doing now, and I love that I get to. John mentioned in the way over the top, amazing intro. I get to take corporate high performers up into the mountains, and as we summit Middle Mountain, have a conversation about, if you're being your best, what are you doing, and what more do you want to do, and how can we increment on that? And then, because we're in that moment up on the mountain summit, and we've worked to get up there, and we've been talking about this effort for, a couple months as they've signed up to go and do this event, they get up there and they're pumped with dopamine because they're up on this mountain summit, and they're developing a relationship with the guys and girls that their small team kind of set up with. So they're not only feeling good about themselves, they're feeling good about those people that they got up there with. And then the view is Montana or the Pyrenees or wherever we're doing this thing. And they are now have a shot of serotonin, that cocktail of dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and a little bit of oxytocin. Now everything is possible. And when everything is possible, you can start believing that you can do that really hard thing that that you really need to do when you get home. And then we have a conversation about, you can do more than you think you can. You can absolutely do more than you think you can. And on day 4 of the Traverse, when we're walking down from our camp, after we had summit Hollow Top when we were in Montana, and I designed all of our events this way that we can have a long, kind of easy walk, get together and talk, and be able to get into a space of, what's your commitment? And we're going to hold you to that when you go home. Because right now it's easy to say that.
Right.
Once you get home and chaos starts happening all around us. And I love that I get a chance to do that. Like, I feel so blessed that I got to do this Green Beret thing in the past, and I get to do this thing now, or I get to have a conversation this morning with a company's team that's kind of fighting a little bit. I can talk to a number of people. I can talk to their leader, and I can say, well, did you hear that he said that, or he said that, or she said this? And the answer is, wait, he said that? You go, yeah, because you're really focused on your position, but there's now greater possibilities. And I'm just helping you guys connect the dots. And in that space, that's when we get to high performance, or a space of just feeling like what I do has meaning.
So Chris, if we wanted to join you on one of these leadership / hey, let's meet some terrific people, get inspired, learn some new skills, et cetera. How do we do that on one of these events? And then if we want to engage you from a coaching standpoint with our teams, or someone wants to do that, how would we do those two things?
Right on, Justin. I think I use my LinkedIn profile to be a key place where I've got all kinds of stuff. And one of the first things you'll see on there once this gets published is this podcast. But I want to be able to use my LinkedIn in a way that it becomes kind of a living and breathing resume, if you will. And then Azimuth Consulting Group at azimuthleadership.com.
And how do you spell that?
Azimuth. So azimuth is spelled Azimuth, and azimuth is a direction on a compass. And it's another fun story for maybe for another day. But the key here is that what my company does is helps you find your direction on the compass, and follow that compass. Increment.
Love it.
1 foot in front of the other, and not only work hard, but work smart and rest hard so that you can be recovered, so you can do that really smart, hard work again the next day. And I hope that when people even go to my website at azimuthleadership.com, that they start seeing that that's what we're trying to do. It's not magic. It's just putting 1 foot in front of the other. It's believing, it's getting to a place where you can believe that you can make a difference, so that now through thought partnership or accountability, you can get to that spot. It's really it's not rocket science, because if it was, I would fail. I'd take the SATs 12 times. But it's a formula that works. It's kind of fun when you watch it work.
You can see the passion and joy of you talking about it. So I have a feeling you're going to see Justin and I up with some others on a mountain.
That'd be
awesome.
We're probably coming. So
there we go.
Yeah.
We'll talk dates afterwards.
You're an inspiring guy, and I wanted to ask one last question, and then I'll let John. He's our closer. But what are you reading right now? What's inspiring you? What are you?
Yeah.
You're a life learner. What are you reading? A couple things.
Well, the On Character is a book that I just recently finished, so that that goes high on my list right now. I actually read a couple books at one time because, I'm reading Arthur Brooks. I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday. The Obstacles Away is the reason why I started my company. So that stays on it. And the book that it's
so Stoicism, is that
Stoicism is, how can you not with this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I'm reading a book called Followership. And so I'm going to say that I'm reading it. It says how followers are creating change and changing leaders. I'm reading it because I think there's a responsibility as a guy in the C-suite to the CEO, or, a director to their VP. There's a responsibility to help them be their best, as well as the leader's responsibility to help their teams be their best. And I've heard great things about this book, and I've just started cracking it. But that's what you just said, though, Justin, is the most important piece, is that I passionately believe that leaders are readers, and being a lifelong learner is an essential piece of being effective, not only as a leader, but I think as a person of character.
It creates joy. Learning anything creates joy, and you're excited to share it. Why would you just do the same thing over and over again?
Yeah. Increases your value to share with others, right? And add value to other people's lives, which is the key of it all.
Yes, it is.
But Chris, this has been absolutely awesome. I wish if we had another hour, which I think we absolutely would love to have you back to dive in, because I feel like we got just a very small piece of your story, and I'm sure there's some incredible parts of it we'd love to unpack and share with the audience. But congrats on you taking this endeavor. This is super powerful. And thank you for sharing your story, your service to this country. encourage everybody in any kind of organization, please go check out Chris's website and his incredible service that he's offering to align your company, help you find that azimuth direction of where you need to be, find out what's possible, unblock the things and the obstacles we put in our heads that hold us back, because we are our own worst enemy of the things that we hold us back from, which is why I think Justin and I are so fascinated with special forces, because it is like the culmination of exactly that. Like people who know how to like find that extra gear and push themselves and push their body and their mind to places that most of us feel like we can. So, well, all that said, Chris, really appreciate your time and look forward to speaking with you again, hopefully on a mountaintop at some point soon.
That would be awesome. Right on, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.